Okay, it looks like we're live. I'm Moshe, and I live in Israel. I'm in the Galilee. You might have heard of that. And today is 23rd August. It's a Shabbat, a Saturday, 7:12 in the morning. I'm running early. What happened is the power went out about 4:30 in the morning, and it kind of woke me up. Oh, we're going to hit 98 degrees today. That's going to get ugly. Not super ugly, but ugly. And tomorrow it starts dropping. We go to 97, 93, 94, 92. Not ultra surprised that the bad day is hitting on a Shabbat because they don't do Shabbat correctly, so they get a bad Shabbat. A lot of Shabbats are bad here. I call it punishment weather. I don't see this kind of weather in the Bible. I don't know how they could have made it if it was the case, but uh, I reflect back sometimes about what life was like. I'm older than most of you, and probably almost all of you. I remember life in the 60s, how carefree and easy it was, but the government, the lousy, stinking governments, the governments are always in trouble. They had the draft on our head in America with the Vietnam War, and that was a real pain in the neck. And then that ended, and then we did not go into prosperity. They were mad at the people in America because of the resistance to them wanting to attack the Vietnamese people because of the spread of communism, which was absurd. And, uh, just kill them. So Nixon went ahead and floated the dollar. I believe he passed the law at the end of 72. I remember when it went on, or early 73. I didn't really understand. People told me, but I didn't quite understand how the impact of that was going to be so bad to America. And it was. And that's, people will say that's why they got rid of Nixon, but no. What happened with Nixon's real problem was there was a war with Israel and the Arabs, and Nixon had promised a lot of weapons to Israel. Then when the war broke out, Nixon called up whoever was the head of Israel back then, the prime minister, and said, I know we promised you weapons, but I'm going to hold off for 5 days. So basically, he wanted to see Israel get punished and beaten up and people killed. And if we still were around in 5 days, he was going to give us the weapons. We were around in 5 days, and he did give us the weapons. And of course, as a result of that, America was in bad shape, real bad shape. There was bad storms. The country was coming close to revolution with what they were doing with the black people and with the war and trying to crack down on drugs and sending people to jail for 10 years for it was just stupid what they did. So the economy in the post-World War II, it took a few years for them to, not that long, about two maybe, when the war was first over, a lot of guys got out of the military. They didn't want them in the military. They were just discharging them like crazy. And they um, they got unemployment insurance from apparently from being in the military. That maybe is not the normal situation, or maybe it is. I don't know. But they got unemployment insurance, and I believe they extended it. So there wasn't a lot of work because there was wartime um, economy, and the wartime economy was finished. So what do I mean? Car manufacturers were making jeeps and tanks and military trucks and things like that, and that had to stop because the army wasn't buying these things, so they had to change their tooling and everything and switch back to cars. And other companies were, like can't remember all of them. Business. There was a business machine company making guns, pistols, 45s, and there was all kinds of everything was uniforms and this. So it took a while for that to switch back and kick into gear. But once it did, it was a whole different America. They were going to reward, this is Satan, they were going to reward America for going around and killing so many people and not stopping Hitler from killing the Jews. And even they themselves took one boatload of Jews trying to escape Hitler and sent them back to Hitler. And so what happened? Well, everybody was buying a car. I think you were able to get cars for $800-900 in the early 50s. Gasoline was 10 cents, 12 cents a gallon, depending if you want a regular or the premium or the super high test or whatever. Houses you were able to buy houses for $1,200-1,500. Okay? And what were the houses like that were that cheap? Well, what were they like? They were 3 bedroom, 2 baths, about 1,800 square feet, on maybe a fourth of an acre. You had a backyard, a patio, a piece of concrete with a patio, and you might have had a picket fence, not a security fence, a white picket fence, and you had a little front yard. You had a garage, usually 2 cars. That's the kind of house you were getting. And I'll tell you, when you went all the way out into the latter 60s, the houses were like $5,000. So people that worked clerking in a supermarket or whatever kind of job they had, right? They were able to buy a car, and they were able to have a house, buy a house. Boy, they sure took that away from the Americans, didn't they? Oh yeah. Oh, of course they did. When Satan and his minions bless a country, it's because they're bloodthirsty and go around killing. And who are his wealthy countries today? Mohammedanism. They've got the wealth, and they're murderous, and they enforce worshiping false gods. They force it on people. So, life was so different. We didn't have lockdowns from the the plagues like COVID and stuff. We didn't have any lockdowns. We didn't know what that was. We didn't know what PSA was. I remember going on planes with guns. I remember people getting on airplanes with hunting rifles in cases and putting them in the aisle up against the seats so people wouldn't step on them because they didn't want to check them. And you were able to run around with guns on airplanes. and you were able to go to gun stores before the 1968 gun control. You just go into the gun store and they would hand you a gun. You paid and you walked out with the gun. Um, but people didn't have this kind of fear. Nobody thought that the country was going to be bombed and attacked, and people didn't have the depression that they have today. They didn't have GMO food. They had foods they were doing steroids and antibiotics in the animals, but I don't think they had done it. I don't think it was as bad as it became later on. And a lot of the stuff was more real food. They had a lot of smaller farmers, and they weren't going around paying people not to grow crops. Everybody was excited. Medicine was making what they would consider to be great strides. Every year they kept coming up with new antibiotics that they said were more effective. They were pretty much the best ones I remember was they came and gave you an injection of the penicillin, and the next day you were really a lot better, and the day after that you were about normal. You got one injection, you didn't get pills. In the early days, the antibiotic pills would make you throw up. Yeah. Erythromycin, acromycin, they had all these things, and you take them as a kid, and you'd vomit. I remember we didn't know anything about alternative health care, colloidal silver, herbs. We knew nothing about it. Nothing. And growing up in New York City, we used to get, the flu or sick in the winter, usually 3 or 4 times. It was horrible living there. So anyway, but we didn't have all this black cloud over our head. It didn't exist. Everybody was, people go, oh, let me go get an education. Oh, I want to get a house. Oh, I want to get a car. Oh, I want to get a good job. I need to get trained. I need to go to school. New inventions kept coming out all the time that made life better. Toaster ovens, and then later on microwave ovens, and the cars kept getting better and better and safer and more modern, and the tires kept getting better and safer. They started with getting away from tube tires to tubeless, and then radials. And then, then they started getting bad. They started with more and more taxes, higher and higher sales tax. The sales tax used to be 2% or 3%. They had very little, if any, states with a state income tax. Going to college was nothing. I mean, it would run you in the '60s. It would run you about $1,000–1,500 a year for tuition if you were out of state. If you're in state, maybe $500 or $600, and you could go to a state university a year. I mean, that's what it cost. And if you didn't have that money, you could get student loans. There were 2 or 3 different kind of student loans you can get, and you can get enough to live on it. You only needed in the '60s. How much would you need to live? You could probably make it on $120 a month. In the later '60s, 140 or 100, and that would be your rent, your utilities, and your food, and your whatever you did for recreation. It wasn't that difficult to make it. Everything was easy, and you didn't have this crime problem. You didn't have illegal immigrants like this. It was just a whole different world. it, it so everybody today has problems, you know. Health insurance, people didn't have health insurance back then. They just would go to the doctor. When I went to university in Florida, State University, you paid your tuition, and I don't know, maybe you paid an extra $10 or $20 a semester. I can't remember how it worked. And you got to use the university healthcare facility for free, which they had several doctors, they had x-ray, they had a small area where people with a few beds, maybe 10, 12 beds, and people could actually, uh, they could actually stay there. I don't think they had an operating room. I think the people that they put in the in the hospital there were mostly there for trauma, like a football player sprained, strained, broke something, and they set it. I don't know, and they kept them in the bed a few days. I think that was. I don't think they put people in there that were really ill, and you didn't have to pay anything. The school had a check cashing service. If your parents sent you a check, you went to this place and you gave them the check, you signed it, that your parents gave you, which would be out of state or in state, and they would give you the cash. That you had to show your student ID card so they knew who you were, just in case. That's how they worked it. And I remember going to the bank. My parents sent me a large check, a few $100s, to open up an account and have money for a while. So I went to the bank and they just gave me immediate credit for the check. College student parents, oh, this will be all right. And they just, you know, kids used to smoke in the classroom in college. Uh, Nobody would understand that today. Um, when you got a parking ticket in Florida for with parking meters, you had to put, I think it was $1. You put it in an envelope. The ticket was an envelope. You put, I think, $1 in the envelope. You licked it, you closed it, and they had boxes on like every fifth or 10th parking meter or something like that, and you stuck it in the box with the dollar in it, and that was it. I mean, it was just a whole other world. What Satan and his moron followers have created is a utopia for, 1/25, one out of, I mean, an infinitesimal fraction of the people, not 1/10 of 1%, not 1/100th of 1%, not 1,000, maybe 1/100,000th of 1% of the people who are actually flourishing in America and most other countries. Okay? There's a lot of Satan bots that think they are, but they're not. They don't even understand what the rich look like. So there's different tiers of Satan bots. The top tier is always transactional. Always, always. And the underlings in Satan's world don't even know this. They don't have a chance of getting ahead. Not a chance. Because they're not transactional. They weren't raised in the womb with different hormones for transactional life, and they weren't raised as infants and small children to grow up in a transactional lifestyle. So they can't do it. People that become transactional, when they're 20s or 30s, never ever attain the level of the other ones. So, and those are people that just do it on themselves. They're not the Satan's elite. Okay? Satan's elite are that way, and they don't even know that. So we didn't have this. It was going on back even in the 30s. It went on in the films, but it was so rare. And in the 40s it went on, but it was still rather unusual. It wasn't very common. In the 50s you saw it a little bit more, but not so much. And in the 60s it started getting there, and it was still, you were able to watch TV shows and movies, and not everybody was a transactional person, but by the time you hit the late 70s it was pretty bad, and in the 80s it was over. You know, uh, and the musicians in the 60s were that way. Oh, yeah. So people had no clue about this. You know, the world was just a different place. People walked around, with, excited. Everything was going to be good. Um, Young people didn't give a hoot about old age, which is typically the case. They didn't even think about it or know anything about it. And people, why a lot of people think today, oh, the medicine is so much better. You know, people were living in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, nicely into their 80s without all this modern medicine. Yeah, there was a lot of them. And people, the big thing that was different is people interacted with each other. We didn't have virtual worlds. Kids didn't play games online and isolate themselves like that. The kids played sports, were outdoors a lot, and they had board games they played, and girls played with dolls and dressing dolls up, and it was, girls weren't growing up and saying, I want to be a policeman and shoot felons, and I want to be a fireman, and they weren't doing that. When I went to college, they had home economics, and it was loaded with women, young women that were in college studying home economics. They had no intention of going out into the workforce. They hadn't been married yet, and they were basically there to get an education, to be a better mother. And home economics would teach them a lot about how to run a house, how to cook, raise children. And their model was they were going to be a housewife and the husband was going to go to work. You didn't need two incomes to live good then. It's just everything. I remember when they switched with the women, and the women were going into the workforce, and people, the older guys that were in World War II and stuff, were resenting that. They're saying, don't hire him, give the guy a chance. The guy's trying to create a family, the woman's just going out and playing games. A lot of women waited till their kids got older and then they would go to the workforce. And, it was all, everything, Satan was trying to change all the values then, you know. Things were pretty much the same with families in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, early 1900s. And then he started getting weird, you know. Satan started with weird stuff. So anyway, yeah, it's really odd, and all of us can't wait for it to be over, the end of the age and redemption. And a few times in the past few months, I was going to sit down and tell everybody, from where I'm looking at it, this might take a long time, many months, years, I don't know. And the Lord would stop me, you know? And what it did with me is it worked me into a position where I'm very confused about when it's going to come, which I think is His purpose and intent, because nobody's going to know the day or the hour. So they're not supposed to have a good handle on it, okay? And like with America, it happens suddenly in a day, in an hour. You know, things are going to come suddenly, I think. And I think they're very, very close. And a lot of you agree with that. They are very, very close. They're very close. I'm going to cover that with you today with what it looks like the UN is moving towards. So anyway, we're also going to cover, well, there's not much to cover. There was a volcano erupting in Iran near Tehran. It's a famous volcano. They put it on their money, and it's quite old. It has not erupted in many thousands of years. They say 7,300. Well, the Earth's not that old yet. So it's not that much, but it's been a long time. And so they got severe drought. Now they got this. Is it a horrific eruption? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's killing people or causing evacuations or anything like that. It's they tell tales about a dragon hiding in that mountain, and you know, so they follow that mythology, which is false. Then the dragon woke up or something, you know. So they're in a pretty bad shape. 60 of the Iranian oil tankers, and you gotta understand, Trump and his sanctions, and Iran was running 60 oil tankers. How many millions of dollars does one oil tanker bring in? My gosh, you know. A hacker group hacked these oil tankers and completely disabled their functioning. I don't know for how long. Do I think Trump had anything to do with it? I don't know. It's possible, but I don't think so. I'm not sure. The other thing that's interesting is the U.S. is surveilling its own self. They have a bunch of these balloons, surveillance balloons, that they say go up 90,000 feet. Now, I don't know if they can really get that high, but I'm rather certain they could hit 70,000. Now, I think the advantage of it being up that high is it may evade radar. But since they're flying over the United States, why the heck do they care? They don't care about evading their own radar. But these are surveillance balloons. And they're surveillancing about 40% of the United States. They're also using Black Hawks and fixed-wing aircraft to do these activities also, which some people are saying is a show of force. Other people are saying it's surveillance, and it could be both. So what are they looking at over America? You see, this is interesting. And the thing that comes to mind is sleeper agents, or fires, maybe? I don't know. I don't know the exact areas that they're being used in, but that's a little bit on the interesting side, you know. Getting deductions out of that, I don't know. So I started to use my program. I'll give you the name of it again. I keep forgetting the name. It's an app, it's not a program, that goes and gives you a summary of YouTube videos. I have not tried it on a non-YouTube video. It's called Eightify, the number 8 and then IFY. It's about $5 a month to use it, which is reasonable. it doesn't, it's not like you connect to their servers and their servers go out and get the video and, get the transcript and fly through it and give you the summary. It uses your own resources. So it works on your own internet connection, which in Israel are pretty good. They're rather fast. And it takes about a minute. So it's a wait, a minute. And it gives you a rather decent summary. I could use it. The problem with this thing is I can't cut and paste the summary. Now, if I put it in as an extension on my Chrome browser, I might be able to cut and paste it. I have to try that. I've just been using the app. And it seems to not work on about a third of the videos, which is curious. It's something to do with subtitles, they say, the app says. So I have the free version of ChatGPT. I'm not paying for that. So I asked it if it could summarize YouTube videos. It said it can. It says it can give me in-depth, it can give me just points, bullet points. So I tried it on a couple of videos, and yeah, it can. It can work on the videos that this other Adafy can't work on, which is very curious. But the summaries from ChatGPT are terrible. They're not helpful. With Adafy, they're excellent summaries. So I think I have to go look for another device. ChatGPT makes one just to summarize videos that's free. I have to try that. And where else? I don't know. There's a few others. I would avoid paying for them, but it might be I'll have to fork up another $5 to $10 a month to get a good one. So the one I got is good, but at least the third, maybe 40%. It's a pretty substantial figure it won't work on. So that's no good. ChatGPT works on practically all of them, but the summaries are no good. So that's no good. Grok, which is my favorite for research, doesn't do the videos. It's afraid, I think Elon Musk doesn't want his Grok program accessing YouTube. Probably for lawsuit reasons. So they don't do YouTube videos. So I gotta figure something out. An interesting situation. So let me run into the live stream and see how we're doing. And then we're going to get into what the UN is cooking up. And I want to tell you what the UN is cooking up is sick. It's based on lies, and it's a sad thing. And I'll give you a full breakdown on that. And let me go into our live stream, make sure we're doing good there. Go into our live stream. We're doing good. We got plenty of sound and picture. Go into our live stream. Thank you for moderators. Let me shut this off. Okay. Got all the moderators here. Great, thanks guys. All right, let me put my post up and we'll get going. And this will be fast. And when I say fast, I mean fast. And then we'll talk about the National Guard call up too, which is weird, man. I verified that. It's real, but it's absolutely weird. I'll break it down for you. for some reason, that National Guard call-up's not making it too much in the news, although Fox News did carry it. We're going to do a little spiritual warfare and cleanse the place here, but it doesn't matter even if these people leave, they're going to get it anyway. Okay, let me do some praise first and we'll take care of our little friends here. There is no God like Jehovah, there is no God like Jehovah, there is no God like Jehovah. There is no God like Jehovah, there is no God like Jehovah, there is no God like Jehovah, there is no God like Jehovah. There is no Messiah like Yeshua, 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 there is no Messiah like Yeshua. Okay. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I command you unclean spirits to depart from any person that was or is watching this video or live stream, whatever you want to call it, watching or listening to it now, or they may have left and they were doing it previously, that have unclean spirits. You, unclean spirits, have to depart from these people immediately now. And you also shall depart from every person that lives in the same house as them, and you also shall depart from every person that lives within 300 meters of them. And you also shall depart from every person that works in the same business that they work in. All of the people, depart from all of them. And you shall not return to any of these people ever again. And these commands are set in place irrevocably, effective now, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And my Heavenly Father, I ask you to loose on these people a not superficial punishment, but a rather serious punishment that they will not detect or understand. It will just come on them and they will not know what it is. And I ask you to do this to all these people that were doing evil works against us during the broadcast or other broadcasts in the past or videos. And I ask this of you, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and agree with me with these things, please. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Make war on these morons. And I further command you, unclean spirits, to depart from anybody with an unclean spirit that comes in to watch this live stream in the future. Depart from them as soon as they come in and give them no warning or explanation. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay. Get a good cleansing going, huh? So what's happening with the National Guard? Why do you want to hear that? And I tell you, I'm stumped with this. It makes no sense. Here's what happened. 19 states got a call up of National Guard. But the total for all 19 states combined was 1,700. So they're calling less than 100 National Guard members per state on average. Now, I don't know, some state might have got 300 called up and another got 22. I have no idea. Okay? What are they doing with these National Guard? Are they going to the beach and acting as lifeguards? No. They're using them to back up ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, on raids of people that are illegal. Now, I would think that the raids they're conducting are going to be oriented towards people they think are violent, like drug cartels. Drug cartel people can't hide on farms out in the middle of nowhere that China owns or something like that because they're selling drugs and other contraband, and they can't just go hide off in the wilderness and do that. So apparently the government's very concerned about something, the American government very concerned about something, and they don't feel that ICE is competent and capable to uh, to handle it. So what could these people be skilled at? Well, they could be skilled at riot control using various kinds of vehicles like a Bearcat or maybe even tanks. That's the most likely thing is they're trained at something. I think they want more than just a guy pulling a trigger on a rifle. ICE can do that. So I don't know more than that, guys. No, nobody does. 1,700 is, you know, uh, not such a huge amount. Let's see how many agents, special agents, ICE has. Let's see if I can pull that up pretty quick. I'm going to search for all their law enforcement officers because they have uniformed people and they have special agents. So we'll get it all. Their breakdown I'm getting is 6,100 deportation officers and 750 enforcement removal assistants. I don't know, they may not be law enforcement. Well, it's giving me a clarification here. Let me check. I'm using artificial intelligence. It scours the internet and let's see what it finishes with. ICE has, I think, 20,000 employees total, but a lot of that is clerk, secretary, um, motor pool, healthcare, retirement, social benefits. Yeah. So they're the 1,700 in the greatest scheme of things with ICE and Homeland Security is a drop in the bucket. So all right, it must be they got some specialized training. And if they're trying to, now I don't know what it is. Could they be snipers? Yes. Does ICE and Homeland Security have their own snipers and their own SWAT units? Yes. Do I think they have a need for more swipers? No. Snipers? No. No. Could these people be demolition experts that defuse bombs? Yeah, but 1,700 of them coming out of the National Guard? I don't think so. I think they operate some sort of equipment that's used in controlling protests and riots. We got to see. I'm not sure. But that's what he did. Does this have something to do with protecting and patrolling Washington, D.C.? I don't think so. It would only apply if ICE and Homeland Security were going to concentrate in Washington, D.C., which I doubt. I doubt it. He can get away with this under Posse Comitatus because the military is technically working underneath law enforcement, taking direction from law enforcement. Like when I was a deputy sheriff, if we had riots, the National Guard would be called out and they would be under the sheriff's department control. Now, the sheriff would get mad at you beyond belief if you were just a deputy and you went and told some full bird colonel in the National Guard what to do and gave him a dressing down. I mean, you'd be very, very sorry you ever did anything like that. But if you're riding in a Jeep or a vehicle with two or three or four National Guard guys that are privates or corporals or even sergeants, and you tell them what to do, that's A-OK, no problem, you're fine. Maybe even lieutenant. But when you start getting to majors and colonels, they're not going to want you telling them what to do. The undersheriff and the sheriff may tell them what to do, but that's about it. Okay, we'll have to watch and see how this unveils. But Trump is behaving unusual, calling National Guard up to help police Washington, D.C. He's afraid of something. He's afraid of the Capitol and the White House and things like that getting overrun, the monuments. That's what I'm sure of, rather sure. And this is probably something different. He's probably trying to reinforce ICE and Homeland Security on raids. So he wants to bring overwhelming firepower into the theater. It's unusual. Trump makes mistakes. Let's see what happens. Now, there's reports that America is flying F-16s over Ukraine, or in Ukraine, over Ukraine. This is not backed up. I cannot get a confirmation. I can't get a confirmation on that. There are American F-16 jets that were given to Ukraine, that Ukraine is flying over there. I can't get a confirm that American pilots are flying American F-16s in the skies of Ukraine. I know people are insinuating or saying outright that that happened, and I don't think so. I can't get a confirmation of that. So I would say I would leave it at the F-16 planes. Trump has basically been infuriating Putin, and Putin's returning the favor. Lavrov, who's like Secretary of State in Putin's government for many years, he's a big shot. Lavrov said that Zelensky is not meeting with Putin, not now. And the meeting in Moscow between Putin and Trump, Lavrov said it's like a comic book story. It's not real. So Trump went ahead and slung another lie. You know, this is getting fairly sickening with Trump and the lying. Yet he keeps doing it. It's getting pretty hard for people to handle, you know? So, did Trump move submarines strategically near Russia? Yes, he said Medvedev came up with some very bad threats, rhetoric he called it. And Trump said, well, I put the submarines there in case the rhetoric of Medvedev turns out to be more than rhetoric, you know, if he tries to act on it. So that's inflammatory. And, you know, Putin is sick and tired of Trump and the pressure and the pushing around and, you know. So the UN people have come out and they've said that there is a famine in Israel and has been. And they're calling it starvation. And they're calling it as if people are dying of starvation in Gaza. So there's a conspiracy going on here that I will break down for you. Okay? And it has nothing to do with Trump. I think Trump's out of this. And Netanyahu's out of it. The Gaza people have been doing everything they can in their power for months to create news articles and stories that there's people starving to death in Gaza, and it's a method of Israel to attack the Gazan people and hurt them, murder them through starvation. In the past several weeks, Israel, quite a few weeks, not just 2 or 3, quite a while, Israel's been photographing large amounts of humanitarian aid coming into Gaza on trucks and being dropped by parachute on pallets from aircraft. And I don't think they've used ships, but I believe they intend to. Then there's been pictures of what it looks like in the So we've had a lot of videos of stores, restaurants, if you will, and food stores and open air market food sellers selling all kinds of food. And we've had videos of fat people in Gaza. people that are like 60 pounds overweight, 80 pounds, right? That's rather extraordinary to find people, that are quite overweight in an area of starvation to the point of genocide. So there is no evidence for what they're saying. The UN people, their standard or their rules for this is that 2 out of 10,000 people are dying of starvation. Okay. Now, I don't know how many people are in Gaza. I don't think Gaza knows. I don't think Israel knows. I don't think anybody knows. But it used to be, before the war started, 2.5 million. Let's be a little bit conservative on this and just use a figure at 2 million. Okay, so we'll use a low figure. 2 million, and we'll divide this by 10,000, right? So that comes up with 200 groups, of 10,000. And that would mean that there needs to be 2 people starving out of every one of these groups, which is 400 people. And it's absurd to even begin to think that 400 people are starving in that place. It's nonsense. There always was food deliveries of some sort. So what Hamas was doing was taking the food by force, bringing it to their tunnels, shooting at the Gazans to keep them away from the food, steal it, and take it to their tunnels. The UN people that were bringing the food in were giving it to Hamas, to the terrorists. So the terrorists were stealing it, robbing it from the people, shooting at the people, putting it in the tunnels, anything they could do to get it into the tunnels, and the UN was working with them and giving it to them. So what was going on? It was a concerted effort to make sure Hamas, the Jew killers, had plenty of food in their tunnels and bottled water so they could sustain and keep on trying to kill the Jews for many months. And at the same time, use the civilians as stooges and let them starve, and then blame the whole thing on Israel. You see, it didn't work. Israel picked up on it, became acutely aware of what was going on, but I don't know if they took into account the UN. They probably did. So Israel made sure there was humanitarian aid flying all over the place, trucking in, flying in, huge amounts of the stuff, huge amounts. There's still people in there that get their hands on the humanitarian aid, and then go to stores and sell it. Now, this is weird because it shouldn't be the case. Humanitarian aid is not given to people to go take it in stores and sell it. You get a dose of food for yourself for the day or the week or whatever they're giving out, usually the day. So the fact that they could go put it in a shop and stock the shelves, what does that mean? It means that they're robbing the food from other people, right? But the robbery and the stealing is not anywhere near enough to cause starvation in these people. It's not even close. With Hamas robbing the food, maybe people skipped food for a day or half a day or so. I don't know. But did people skip food for a week and they're walking around the streets emaciated? The Warsaw Ghetto with Nazis in Poland, that's where Warsaw is. There was nothing to eat there, pretty much. And there were people falling down in the street. They'd be walking around, they didn't know what they were doing, they're like delirious and they're emaciated, and they would just fall down. Then when they fell down, people would go take their clothes, their shoes, their coat. If it was cold, it just was a terrible thing. You're not seeing anything like this in Gaza. Nothing, nothing, nothing. It's nonsense. Now, we could have a discussion of Israel should have done this at the very beginning of the war, and it would have been over in 2 weeks. But they didn't. Netanyahu didn't want it over in 2 weeks. Netanyahu could have cut the food. Well, the food would be hard to cut, but he could have cut the water, he could have cut the internet, he could have cut the electricity, and by the time the nations figured out what was going on, without the internet, without electricity, he could have got away with it for some days before people knew what was going on and believed it. It would have taken weeks, and then it could have been over. But then he would have had to go back to court and defend himself in his 3 criminal cases. He didn't want that. He's no stinking good. So, in my opinion. So what's going on now? Well, now I don't think this is Netanyahu's doing, because he's been trying to stop it, and it's unfounded. So the UN is saying that there's famine resulting in starvation, resulting in death. Just like what Gaza is saying, the Hamas. And we had pictures that I showed you on my Telegram of the Hamas soldiers in the tunnels gorging themselves with food. Now, are they eating, quarter pounders with cheese and, fries? No, I don't think so. They're getting a lot of packaged food. Are they getting really great, good food there? No. But it's very easy to stay alive with what they're getting. Extremely easy. And you'd be better than alive. You'd be pretty much okay. They're probably getting fed at a level of soldiers in combat getting fed, where they're not getting hot meals. They're just getting, MREs, meals ready to eat and stuff like that. Okay? So what's going on next is this. We're picking up rumors that the UN is going to use this starvation lie as a way to stop the war, Israel versus Hamas in Gaza. Okay? We're going to have to develop this story so you understand the full implications. Now, how would this normally work? The normally work scenario is they would go to the General Assembly maybe, and they would start talking about it as a problem and make a vote and then refer it to the Security Council, or it would start in the Security Council. Now, there's only one country in the Security Council, the UN, that's not severely against Israel, and that's America. The UK would throw Israel under the bus. They want a Palestinian state. So would France and all the other big people in the UN Security Council. The only China, Russia, permanent seats. So the only people that I can imagine that would veto this is America. But will America veto it? what is the it I'm talking about? The it I'm talking about is stop the war. Now, is Netanyahu dragging the war out still to this very day? Yes. Explain, I will. He's taking the IDF soldiers. He did send draft notices 2 days ago, maybe three, to 50,000 reservists to report for active duty. They probably just about all showed up by now. They, he's got the existing soldiers there surrounding a part of northern Gaza where the Hamas are, called Gaza City, which appears to be their central location. And he's evacuated civilians out of there, and he has the place surrounded so they can't run away. And has he started attacking them with ground forces or air attacks or artillery attacks or anything? No. Why? No good reason that I know of. He's just sitting there dragging it out. And he's trying to negotiate again with these idiots. He knows they're not going to come up with a good deal. Just because you surrounded them, you think they're going to say, la, 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 we're scared. Okay, here's all your hostages. Leave us alone, please. We'll leave Gaza. You can have all the guns. Just let us leave. You know, that's never going to happen. That's Netanyahu's criteria. They're not even close. They're not. The last time I heard, they said they were going to keep the hostages through the rebuilding of Gaza, which is 5 to 10 years. The nations are answering to the unclean spirits who are against Israel for obvious reasons. They don't want God to make Israel the head of the nations. They're the head of the nations. So what it boils down to, if this thing with the UN moves conventionally, and that's a maybe, because it may move unconventionally too, then they're going to lean on Trump, and they're going to tell Trump, you're going to have no friends left if you veto this. And since Trump is running around, singing, the song, let's give peace a chance, right? He may go for it. And he's already verbalized that Netanyahu is dragging out the war for political reasons. He knows it. Okay? The latest crack Netanyahu came out with is there's not 20 living hostages. There's a smaller number. He did not give the number. The retort to him from the Israeli, one of the ministers, I can't remember which one, said, we have no information. That lines up with that. And that's consistent with Trump slinging the bull. Okay? So Trump could have been talking, just off the top of his head with no factual information. Why would the Israeli ministers, the official government, say, no, we have no information to that effect, and then they'll get caught in a lie later on, and they're going to say, they wouldn't do that. If they are saying that there's still the same amount of the 20 hostages alive, they mean it. They wouldn't say it if they knew otherwise. Israel doesn't work that way. All these little lies like that get caught and exposed. They wouldn't do it. So why would Trump make that statement? So Trump might be ready to force a ceasefire. Of course, Satan's doing it to him. To force Israel into a ceasefire. Does that mean that it's the end of Israel and all this stuff? No. What does it mean? That's a good question, isn't it? Well, what it would mean is this, and you got to understand this. If you're really going to get something, I'm going to tell you about this, get this. It would mean that the UN is telling Israel, you got to get out of Gaza or else we're going to take action against you. The Security Council can do that if Trump doesn't veto it, and he may not. So what happens? If that passes, Israel stops fighting in Gaza. This is what they would want Israel to do. Withdraw out of Gaza completely. Turn it over to Hamas, because there's nobody else. Okay? And then Hamas gets back in there. Humanitarian aid they're in there now. Humanitarian aid keeps flowing. And then rebuilding starts. Now, we're told it could take easily 6 months to even 18 or 24 months just to remove the rubbish. It's probably not going to be 6 months. It's probably not going to be 2 years. It would probably be a year, but even 6 months is too far out prophetically. So what would happen is trucks, maybe 100 trucks a day, or I don't know what, would come in and workers would fill it up with debris and they'd haul it out and find some place to dump it, maybe in Gaza, maybe somewhere else, I don't know. You got to clear the debris out, and then they have to make the sidewalks and the streets paved and get street lights back and stuff like that, right? Okay. So now we got Hamas flourishing, and what else is going to happen? The Rafah crossing is definitely going to open to Egypt, and the smuggling of weapons is going to continue from Egypt. All sorts of missiles and rockets like in the past. And tunnel construction equipment and supplies will also smuggle in. Egypt is against us. Egypt looked the other way while Gaza smuggled in all those thousands and thousands of missiles and rockets and anti-tank rockets and guns and ammos and all the concrete to make that metro tunnel thing they had there. You know, crazy. Now it's worse because the nations want a Palestinian state. Who most recently came out in favor of a Palestinian state? Well, Australia and New Zealand saying they'll probably come behind. The UK, France, Spain, I think Portugal, Malta, and some others will join in if they haven't already. Okay? What do they want to do with this Palestinian state? This is really the destruction of Israel, is what they're headed for. I'll explain. The Palestinian state would have two pieces if they had their druthers. One would be Gaza, one would be the West Bank. And Mahmoud Abbas, who's technically in charge of the Palestinian state, is saying he wants to move forward and just declare independence or separation from Israel without anybody's help or permission. He hasn't done it, but he's talking, I think, in September. And I think he's going with the help of the UK, France, and Spain, and Australia, and Qatar, and all that, right? The other idea is they make a road connecting Gaza to the West Bank. Now, mind you, there's several 100,000 Jews living in the West Bank. They call them settlers. And there's as many as 2.5 to 4 million Arabs living in the West Bank. If this happens, the Jewish settlers there are finished. Make a road there, and they'd probably put 25-foot high walls on either side of the road so you can't get off in Israel and go start stabbing people, and unify the two together. Well, building the road and the wall would take years. You're never going to prophetically see that and all that. But what you could see fairly immediately would be the UN is saying Gaza is now its own country. You're invading another country, you're doing war crimes, get out, or we're going to take action against you. So the UN's game would be this. So let's not go off into dreamland with connecting to the West Bank and running the Jews out of the West Bank and all this stuff. And Israel is building houses in Adamim, which is going to mess up them in Jerusalem and all that. But that's not Gaza. So they just turn around and say, okay, Gaza is its own state. And they could say so's the West Bank. But the West Bank, let's not get too involved with that right this minute. Okay, so Gaza is now a sovereign nation, according to the UN. If it goes, then Israel's invading and attacking them. Get out, Israel. It's over. Get out. Or we'll get you out. That's it. What is their goal? Their goal is as follows: that Israel doesn't win a war, which is historically, they've always done that, back to 48. Now, if that happens, which the UN has every interest in doing, Gaza is theirs. There is no demilitarizing Hamas. Trump does not get his resorts. So he'll be bellyaching, and Trump may very well start with his veto power because he wants that land. So not because he wants to help Israel, because he wants that land, he may fight against them. And this could be a serious trigger for the daughter of Babylon to go down. Because there's nobody standing on Trump's side in this thing. Canada doesn't want it. Mexico, I don't think, wants it. I don't know any country that's going to stay. There's a couple of islands, around that actually support Israel. But there's no significant country with a big economy, big population, and big military that would support Israel. Nothing. And what comes if this happens? Hamas is now free to build an airport in Gaza and to have a port. It's their own country. You can't stop it. The fact that you gave them the land back in 2005 or 8, whatever it was, is irrelevant. Okay, it's their land. The UN says it's a sovereign country, and they want an airport, they build an airport. So once they have an airport, Iran and whoever else is going to bring them all kinds of weapons, fly them in daily. So it could take as little, I'm telling you, as little as 2 weeks or maybe 6 weeks. And they'll start attacking Israel again. Yeah, they will. It might take more, but I think it would be very brief. I mean, you'll see Iranian tanks there. They'll come with ships. What would they do with tanks and armored personnel carriers? They'll get them from everybody: Egypt, Iran, Turkey. Whatever. They'll roll into Israel with them and kill the people in Israel again. They'll go after Netanyahu and the whole government. Some countries may put fighter jets there. I mean, you got to understand. Some countries may take destroyers and dock them up there. Russia might get into it. China might get into it. China and Russia may decide it's time to build a base there. Satan doesn't want to see Israel ever get the land back. So, if this was carried out, it would mean Israel's in for a very serious problem that would, if it was allowed to continue out, which it wouldn't be, it could result in the deaths of millions of Israelis. And it could result in the end of the country of Israel. So it's not happening. So this is the serious nature of this, okay? And it's minimal level. What happens is the Rafah crossing with Egypt is open, weapons smuggled in there, Hamas stays in control, and they rebuild. And the nations want Hamas there in control to rebuild, to build up and kill the Jews. That's what they want, because they're all run by Satan, these nations, and that's what Satan wants. It's not hard to understand. And the UN is a satanic organization like the nations, and they're coming up with basically lying their way into this starvation, death by starvation, and stopping the war. So Israel's got a problem. So will Netanyahu go along with the UN? Let's say Trump vetoes it and they ignore Trump. What does Trump do? Who can he file a protest with? Nobody. What could he do about it? Well, he could declare war on the world, but other than that, nothing. So do you think that's a possibility? I think Satan is so scared. Remember all the stuff that's going on with the keys of the kingdom against him. He's petrified right now. So yeah, he's getting desperate, and yeah, Trump may. Remember, the beast who's with Satan turns against the daughter of Babylon, burns her and eats her flesh. Half the fires in America are supposedly due to arson now. Now that's not a normal everyday scenario. That's something really weird. It doesn't usually happen. Arson or human made. It's not normal. And the fires don't appear normal either. It's the way they're coming about, like with California fires at the beginning of the year. It's not normal. And look at Iran. They got less than 10% water supply. Iraq has less than 8%. And now Iran has their famous volcano erupting, which their mythology says the triple-headed dragon or whatever that lives in the volcano is waking up, or something like that. I don't know. Very inconsistent with Mohammedanism, but that's what they they're dealing with, and they put that volcano on their currency. So is it likely Netanyahu would try ignoring the UN? Yeah, because he figured Trump would just veto it. So he ignores the General Assembly and then doesn't worry too much about the Security Council. And Trump may veto it, and they may just say the heck with Trump and kick him out. So this is nuts, guys. They're trying to get rid of Israel, and they want the Muslim terrorists to do it. They want Iran to do it. They want the Houthis to do it. Did they ever do anything to the Houthis for blockading the Red Sea to get Israel to stop attacking Gaza? No. Trump started to do something against them, and then he stopped. Nobody's doing it. So they may ignore Trump at the UN Security Council and just break the rules, or Trump may throw the towel in and go along with them because they'll threaten him. Trump's got a lot of problems with other countries because of the tariffs and because of the sanctions. So there's a lot of countries that really have it in for Trump, believe me. Europe does. Quite a few do. Hang on a second, guys. So things are rather crazy. Let me see what the other news is. So this is very serious. I will be following it very closely and keeping everybody updated. But the UN and Hamas are in agreement that there is starvation working in Gaza to kill people, and Israel's behind it. And they're just buying into it. They don't care if it's true or not. Now, we know the U.S. Navy is off the coast of Venezuela, the so-called counter cartels down there. We'll see how that goes. It's really Venezuela gangs that sell drugs. The cartels are not really, I don't think, heavily based in Venezuela. I don't think so. Now, this is very serious. Syria is deploying 60,000 of their military to go up into the northeastern area of Syria where the Kurds are. And I would expect genocide the Kurds. The Kurds refused to give up their weapons. The Kurds wanted to have a community next door to the Kurds. Right. I don't know how this is going to turn out. The Kurds are allies with the Druze, and they were scheduled to turn their weapons in and work with Giuliani, the head of Syria. But when they saw the genocide against the Druze, they said no. So the Druze and the Kurds are kind of friendly. Turkey hates the Kurds and wants to get rid of them, and Turkey backs the Giuliani government. So chances are Turkey's behind getting rid of the Kurds. The Kurds may likely be lost tribes. They look the part to me, but that could be error as well. So we got to wait and see what happens with this. It looks bad. Now, Trump's military bases are in northeast Syria, kind of near there, but not exactly there, to dominate these oil fields for American companies. So Trump is in favor of the Kurds, and he may step in and do something about this. I don't think Israel will. I'll be back in a minute. Quick break. No. The big problem we got here with Giuliani in Syria is that Trump very stupidly lifted the sanctions off of Giuliani and Syria. Then this moron Giuliani went out and started doing genocide on the Druze. It's still continuing, but it's downplayed. Trump doesn't want to be caught being an idiot, so he's not doing anything about it. Now Giuliani wants to get rid of the Kurds, which America backs. So Trump kind of has to do something, but I don't know what he's going to do. The only one that really wants to get rid of the Kurds is Turkey. I don't think the radical Sunni Muslims in Syria want to get rid of the Kurds, but it could be the case. There's a reason why they weaponized. So Giuliani wants to bring a big force over there to tell them, throw the towel in and give us your weapons, and they won't do it. Because they know Giuliani will just come back a week or a month later and genocide them. So it's basically committing suicide by Giuliani. They won't do it. They're not that dumb. They're not dumb at all. So then comes the challenge, what will Giuliani do? Attack him? I don't know. He may be afraid to try that because while he's up in the northeast fighting against the Kurds, Israel may move in and clip a bigger piece of Syria for the Druze. Right up next to Damascus, maybe. Remember, Damascus will be a ruinous heap. We're not there yet. That's got to happen. So, is this thing with the Kurds and Giuliani a risk to the state of Israel? I don't think so. No. Will a lot of nations speak up in favor of the Kurds if Giuliani does this? I don't know. Maybe. I'm not so sure Giuliani wants to go for another round of genocide right now. He's still recovering from the problems of the Druze. And the Druze people will make sure the world knows about what he's doing with the Kurds, and they may even go help the Kurds. And that'd be a real mess for them. The Druze may figure we got to stay united with the Kurds, and then we can keep Giuliani off our back. Giuliani's army's not that big, not that advanced, doesn't have Air Force, doesn't have much of a Navy, doesn't have much of anything. Different militant groups came together to join Giuliani in an army to keep him in power, but I don't think they're that powerful. Now, Turkey could help Giuliani openly, but that'd be dangerous for him. It would jeopardize him in NATO. He wouldn't like that. So we got more trouble in the Middle East there. I've heard of Iran doing nothing to end their drought. So far in 2025, in America, there have been 45,000 wildfires. They have burned close to 4 million acres of land. lightning strikes accounted for 4,500 wildfires, leaving 40,500 otherwise. The majority of the 40,500 fires were started by people. That's pretty serious. And that doesn't sound normal to me. Human-caused fires in Utah this year so far cost Utah $29 million. That's for one state, Utah, which is not a heavily populated state. It's not so small either. That's a lot of money, though. What the UN is exactly saying is there's over 500,000 Gazans in the north of Gaza that are suffering from hunger, which is a war crime. That's the specifics of what they're saying, and please note it's not real, it's a lie, and them calling it a war crime means they're planning on, taking control over Israel. It's just a desperate move of Satan. A UN spokeswoman on TV, I believe, accidentally admitted that Hamas, which is in Lebanon too, by the way, stored rockets next to a UN office. That's human shielding in action, so they don't get blown up, because Israel would be afraid to blow the UN office up. And the UN office didn't see them move the weapons in. Of course they did. The UN is on the side of the Muslim terrorists, who are both on the side of Satan. Now, this thing the UN is cooking up with the starvation in Gaza is probably going to go fast track. If it's real, how could they not take it fast track? So they got to play the part and go fast track. Now, let me feed you the kicker here. Let's say Israel says, no, we're not leaving Gaza. It's a threat to our existence. The UN Security Council votes for Israel to be forcibly taken out of Gaza, but Trump vetoes it. And then what? Then the UN Council at the General Assembly level says let's put a siege on Israel unofficially without having a vote. We call on all the UN members to suspend flights to Israel, stop conducting commerce with Israel, stop working with their banks, and we call on people to gather at Israel's border and stop anything from going in and going out. And this would bolster the Muslims, and they would gather on our borders. Now, what could Trump do about that? Nothing. And what is that called? That's the siege in Zechariah 12. I have heard them call unofficially to take action against Israel, like with sanctions, in the last year or so. So they could do that. They probably will do that. They'll try to do it forcefully, but I don't think that they're going to be so quick to revise Trump's position in the UN. It might go that way, but it doesn't have to go that way. And Trump's stance against them is definitely going to push the attack on America closer. The Arabs may reach out to the other countries and say, if we attack Trump in America, are you going to do anything? They'll probably say no. And that's it. So this thing with Gaza could bring everything together. Now remember, there could always be a delay, some sort of ceasefire negotiation or something like that. The UN could be doing this to scare Netanyahu into making a ceasefire with them for 60 days, which he might do. I hope not. I don't see any strong indication of that. I don't see any weak indication of that. I see no indication. This is a very real conspiracy. The media around the world has been erroneously convincing people that Israel has caused starvation and is starving people to death. They've taken pictures of children that are extremely ill and shown them and say this is starvation, and stuff like this. So this is not something that's going to happen. This is something that happened. The UN hasn't taken any official action, but their agency has released lying false figures on starvation in Gaza, blaming it on Israel. Specifically focusing on the north. And now we have Netanyahu dragging his feet, surrounding Gaza and telling them that to negotiate with them. It's ridiculous. Netanyahu's nervous. He doesn't know what he'll do the day after when he finishes off Hamas. The Attorney General and the Supreme Court of Israel hate him because he's trying to get rid of them. So they'll call him right into court. And they'll run that trial as quick as they possibly can. And he'll probably get convicted. And then they're finished with him. The curse of Israel would be lifted, but they'd get a new Satan bot. It wouldn't make much difference. So, Satan lies to the people. Like in America, you got the Democrats, you got the Republicans, but what he doesn't tell you is that the real reigning political party in America and all the other countries is the Satan party. And the members of the other parties are predominantly in a Satan party, and that's where their obligation is. The other political parties is a sham. Satan doesn't care who you vote for, because all the candidates are Satan bots. So you don't have to worry. He doesn't have to worry. If one wins or another wins, you're going to have slight differences, but Satan's still going to be in control. The people are going to moan and groan. The governments are the ones that make all your misery. They take the money away from the people in great quantity. They pass laws that people don't know of or understand, and they don't follow them themselves. They create phony money supplies with inflation and recessions. It's just ridiculous. The rich people love recessions because the people suffer during a recession and they love watching that. And they don't. And then they acquire the wealth from the people that run out of money and have to sell things, and they buy it at discount prices. And that's why you keep having recessions. If you had hard money, gold and silver, you probably wouldn't have any recessions. What they do is they loosen up the money supply, causing inflation, and people run around buying all kinds of stuff because this is good and work is there, and they don't want to hold money because it's not appreciating, and things like real estate and other assets are. So they buy things, and then the government tightens the money supply, and they don't have enough money to make the payments on things they bought, like real estate, cars, and things like that. So then they have to sell, and people lose jobs, and they have to sell their assets. Now they sell the assets for a lot less than they paid for it. And the Satan bots who have plenty of money wait for this and buy up the assets. And then they build the economy up again, and the Satan bots do well. They could take those assets and sell them at a high price, take their profits, wait for the coming recession, and then buy the stuff back again at a dirt cheap price and repeat. They do it with stock, commodities, real estate, all sorts of things. Businesses, companies. The regular people only know from real estate, houses and things like that. That's what they go by. So, we're at a critical stage here with this thing with Gaza, and I think this is it. If you're going to ask me, I think this is really it. I think that's what I've been shown. Now, this Gaza thing's going to bring it on. And we want Zechariah 12. Zechariah 12 is our friend. Now, maybe we had to suffer a little bit waiting for it to come because it may be unpleasant during the siege, but we've been through so much. We'll be so happy when the siege starts, it won't matter. And some of you may be here for that. Or not, I don't know. But it looks like this is it. Not just for the siege in Zechariah 12, but also Jeremiah 50:51, the downfall of the daughter of Babylon. Because Trump's really pitted against the nations over this Gaza and other things, tariffs, you know. Trump's got not many friends right now. I don't think he has any, and he has a lot of enemies. I mean, England's very opposed to him on a lot of things, as is France, many countries. Big, important countries, so. That's basically it. Let me check the live stream. I'm gonna get it open. If any of you guys want to ask questions, you can. But I think we're really there. As far as I know. Circumstances are just crazy, and what is Satan, the father of lies, and this whole thing with Gaza is being built on a lie. All right, so let's do some spiritual warfare and benefit the people and all that. Okay, so B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I ask you, my Heavenly Father Jehovah, to loose on all the true believers your love, your peace, your joy, your shalom peace, your calm and rest and faith. And I pray the gifts of the Spirit operate through the people, and they have signs and wonders following the preaching of the word correctly. And I ask for all this loosing as what I ask for, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can join in. B'Shem Yeshua, and please do agree in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. And I bind all you unclean spirits from doing anything to the true believers or the households to cause them any problems, any financial difficulties. You shall do nothing to prevent them from earning, or making money. You shall do nothing to make them spend money or waste money. You shall not give them the darts, throw the darts at them. You shall not give them any negative or ungodly thoughts, ideas, or notions. You shall not give them any feelings. You shall not do anything to impede or prevent them from walking in the true gospel. You shall not do anything to stop any of them from coming to Israel, effective immediately. And you shall not do anything to stop the true believers from having physical fellowship with other true believers anywhere in the world. And you shall not do anything to prevent the formation of congregations with true believers anywhere in the world. All these things are done with no time expiration date on them. They just keep going without stopping, and it's all done B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this if you like. I hope you do. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay. I pray, my Heavenly Father, that the videos get better and you reveal to me more truths that I can pass on to the people, and we have correction of errors if we're off on something or some things. You illuminate us and show us the truth and how we could correct in our thinking and doctrine. So I pray we have perfect doctrine, and I pray this B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this if you like. Now let's go do a little work on Israel. B'Shem Yeshua on America. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I command you unclean spirits for a period of 1 year not to be inside of any person that is employed by the United States national government or works for or is the elected or appointed official for the United States government and any and all their agencies. You shall not be in these people effective immediately, and you shall never return unto these people again, and none of you unclean spirits shall go into any of these people for a period of 1 year continuously beginning now. And you shall also not appear to any of these people, nor guide them, nor lead them, nor direct them, nor help them, or assist them, or give them advice for 1 year continuously, nor shall you be allowed to go into any building, vehicle, aircraft, boat that is owned, operated, controlled by the United States government. If any person goes into these facilities, you must exit from them before they get in there, and you cannot warn them of this, nor shall you be able to not warn them of this beforehand, nor explain to them what happens after the fact. And these commands are set in place now for 1 year continuously, or these bindings are set in place for 1 year continuously, beginning now, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Do all things in the name of Yeshua. Okay. That would make life rather hard for them over there. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I bind you unclean spirits from being inside any person in Israel that works for any government, local or national. You must depart from all these people immediately, as well as every person who lives in the same house as these people, and never return unto them again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I bind you unclean spirits from being inside any building, aircraft, vehicle, boat, structure that's owned, operated, controlled by the Israeli government or any local government. You shall not be able to go into any of these places, and you shall depart from any person that's in any of these places or things now, never to return to them, and also come out from everyone who lives in the same household as them. And I further well, that's pretty good. Well, and I do all this B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that. I bind you unclean spirits from being inside the national government of any and all of the following countries, which names I'm going to sound off. When I sound the name of the country off, you shall depart from every appointed and elected official in the national government and every person that works for the national government. You shall immediately depart from them, never to return unto them again, as well as immediately departing from every person that lives in the same household as them, and never returning unto them again. And this binding shall apply to Canada, Mexico, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, North Korea, China, the Philippine Islands, Australia, New Zealand, Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, Lebanon, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Saudi, okay, so this is all done B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that. I bind all you unclean spirits from being inside any building, aircraft, boat, plane, vehicle, or structure owned, operated, or controlled by the governments of Ukraine and Russia. You shall depart from every person inside such things immediately, never returning unto them again. And if any person enters into these facilities and things, you have to depart from them immediately before they get in there, and you shall not give them any warning beforehand, nor explain it to them after the fact. And these commands are in place for 1 year continuously, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that. I command you unclean spirits to depart from every member of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Yemen government that work for them or are appointed elected officials, the Al-Qaeda people, the Taliban people, the ISIS people, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and any militia group backed by Iran. You shall immediately depart from all these people and never return unto them again. And you shall not go in these people, nor guide them, lead them, direct them, help them, or assist them for 1 year continuously, beginning now, and this is all done, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree. I forgot that for Israel. I bind all you unclean spirits from communicating with, appearing to, guiding, leading, directing, giving advice, helping, assisting, lying, deceiving, warning, or threatening any person that's an appointed or elected official in Israel, in any government, or one that's employed by any government. These commands are in place now for 1 year continuously, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that if you like. We'll keep Israel as sanitized as we can for our own selfish needs. I command all you unclean spirits, all of you, I bind you to not control or even attempt to control any government, national government in the world of any country for a period of time beginning now and lasting 1 year continuously. You shall cease and desist any such activities, never resume them again, nor shall you start new such actions again, to guide, lead, direct, control, assist, help, threaten, warn any national government of any country in the world. And this is for 1 year continuously, beginning now, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree. So we're using the kingdom to take his kingdom away from him right now, because his kingdom is basically threefold. One, false religions. Two, big businesses, corporations, whatever, like the Walmarts and Amazons and Ford and all that, right? And the governments, that's what he runs with. I bind you unclean spirits from remaining inside or being inside any person inside the borders of Israel who is a religious leader in any Catholic church, Messianic congregation, synagogue, yeshiva, or any religious organization, or any Muslim mosque, or Muslim religious organization, or any Hindu or Buddhist religious organization. And you shall depart from these people immediately and never return unto them again, and you shall not go into them, nor guide them, lead them, direct them, help them, assist them, give them advice, threaten them, lie to them, deceive them, for 1 year continuously, beginning now, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. So we lifted off the religious people. It'll take time for them to fall apart, but they will. I bind Satan and all the unclean spirits from deceiving any people about who they are. I bind you from lying to the people and explaining to them that you are something that you're not. And I further bind you from disguising your appearance to them. If and when you appear to them, you shall display your true appearance only. And these commands are set in place for 1 year continuously, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Let's see, you can agree with that, please, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Now let's see if if Satan keeps appearing to people, if he can't disguise his appearance. I know what he looks like, because the Lord showed me him many years ago. You don't want to see him. He looks like an old man with the drawn-in face and the thin face, and not plump or anything. It has stringy, greasy, salt and pepper hair. Comes down to about here to the shoulders. Looks like an old man in the 80s. Wears a gray smock thing that has a thing around his neck. Comes down a couple inches here, like a V or something. and it's a coarse garment, and it looked dirty and ugly, and that's what he's wearing. I believe he had sandals. Now, like Yeshua was walking with the disciples and disguised his appearance, they didn't know who he was. I believe Satan and the unclean spirits may have the ability, or some of them anyway, have the ability to disguise their appearance, uh, so they can make themselves look like something they're not. Okay? But we stopped that. Let's see how that goes. Let's just wreck his kingdom, wreck his empire, wreck his everything. He's just a piece of garbage. He just picks on us all the time. He's so afraid of us. And he doesn't want us with other people, and we know why now, because the two or more agree, there I am in the midst of you. He doesn't want you in fellowship with anybody else. That's why he has you guys, some of you made mistakes and married, just because you didn't know any better. You married a false believer like I did, and it happens to a lot of people. And they keep you that way to stop you from being with somebody else. They don't. That's how afraid he is, or he wouldn't care. If that wasn't the case, he wouldn't give a hoot. Let them go meet together. They could go see songs and all. Who cares? He cares. He's worried. He doesn't want this, because look what we're doing to him. We prayed for somebody yesterday about an air conditioning incident, and the fulfillment of the prayer was pretty spot on, I was told. Yeah, the air conditioner's working. They're okay. Actually, the repair was free. It wasn't really a repair, but anyway, I don't know what happened. Maybe there was water collecting in the hose. I don't know the whole detail. I is not an air conditioning repair guy. But I'll tell you, I was a little startled at 4:30 in the morning. Everything stopped. No, I was sleeping, I was in bed, and I was hearing the air conditioner and the fan, right? And, that was what I'm used to, hearing those noises. It's like a background noise, right? And then all of a sudden it went silent, and I was feeling the fan blow the air conditioning on me, because I don't have an air conditioner in my room. It gets too cold. I don't like it. I have a very small room. The rooms in Israel are always very small, so I don't bother with that. So I get the um, so I blow the air conditioning in from the dining room, I guess you would call it, into my room with a fan, so I can handle that. Um, so all of a sudden it started getting warm. I didn't realize the fan stopped blowing on me. So I woke up, I guess. And then I was praying. I said, gee, Lord, I pray this comes back on quickly, right? And it was off for probably less than 10 minutes, but probably at least 5. So then I realized it was dark in the room, and I couldn't see what was going on. I started looking out on the side, and I was thinking, gee, the guy on the other side of me has lights on the yard. But then I said to myself, that might not be what you think it is. It might be they sell lights and we have them too, solar. So they charge during the day, and then all night long they light up. And I said, it can be that. You got to be careful. So I said, well, if I'm wrong and those are real lights on electricity, then the power's not out. And in the community, it's just us. So then I have to go look at the circuit breakers and figure out what's going on. And I said, well, I'll go find my flashlight. I have a little flashlight that's very powerful. And I couldn't find it in the dark. So then I found my iPad. I knew where I left that. And I turned that on, and I was using that as a light. And I was getting ready to go get my phone and use that for a light and all that. And then Next thing I know, boom, the power came back. But it was, I was up already. I didn't want to get back to sleep anymore, so I just made coffee. But I was getting bummed out. I was saying, you take this for granted with this electricity. How are you going to make your coffee? I make instant coffee. I need it hot. But I was thinking, well, just make cold water coffee. What are you going to do? Or I could run the hot water, but that's coming from the solar thing. I don't know how healthy that is to drink. So I was debating what to do, and then the power came back on. So what I think they did is they were changing a transformer because we're in this hot weather. They're trying hard to keep us, in air conditioning without having to lose power. That's nice of them, you know. Um, I remember living in a place in Florida that okay. What else? Let me see if we got any prayer requests that came in on the chat, because I take that stuff very seriously. Um, what's this? I don't know what's going on here. Let me see. Oh, that's just some weird app that got open. Okay, let's see what's cooking here. I'm not. Wait. What are we getting here? Battery backup. Yeah, I should do that. I got some of those backup things for my phone, and they don't quite work on the iPad. I should get more. I did years ago buy a solar thing to charge phones and iPads. I've never used it, but I have no reason to believe it wouldn't work. Um, Somebody says something. What are they saying? MRE type. Oh, meals ready to eat. Yeah, I had meals ready to eat many years ago. I wasn't too impressed with them. I prefer to just buy canned food, which is going to last for years. If they're metal cans or metal containers like with tuna, but if you buy the peel off can that's not really metal, and the tuna with a peel off, top to the can ain't gonna last that long. You're better off getting salmon and tuna like chicken of the sea or so, or Star Kiss or something that's got a real metal can, not a plastic and metal, and you get years and years out of it, which you're not gonna need. So, all right, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I bind all you unclean spirits and people that serve the unclean spirits from harassing any true believer or bothering any true believer or interfering with their finances, their money, or their household, or preventing them from coming to Israel and living in Israel permanently, or preventing them from gathering together with other true, real believers and doing spiritual warfare together and praying together and agreeing together. You're so bound from doing all this for all time. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and I ask you, my Heavenly Father, to do this binding, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and please agree, and it'll get done. I think it's essential that we start coming to Israel. And you got to hear it from the Lord, not me. And maybe I'm wrong about this, but you got to hear it from him, and then he's going to have to pave the way for you, not me. But he knows what he's doing. Now, maybe he doesn't want to do it this way. I don't know. I can't. All I know is when you read the scripture, there's a lot of believers in Yerushalayim, and that's rather interesting. So, I guess we got our bases covered. The big thing is to get the corporations, the governments of the world. That's the critical thing right now, because the corporations will fall apart when the governments fall apart, and so will the churches and the false religions of, the shrines, the mosques, what are they, the Hindu and Buddhist, what do they call those, shrines, I think? I don't know. All of that stuff they have will fall apart. All right, so I hope you got something out of this. This thing going on with the starvation in Gaza, I couldn't understand why it kept building and building. Now I see what they were up to. Gaza, Hamas, and Gaza was working with the UN. This was a plan that goes back months. That's why they were trying to, walk through bold-faced lies and make it look real. Because they're trying to just, all the UN wants to do is create some sort of cover story. They don't care if it's true or not. People aren't going to know it, and then just push forward. And let's see what happens. This is getting us closer and closer to Zechariah 12. So the UN may officially call for a siege on Israel, or they may attempt to do it and they can't because of the Trump veto, and that emboldens the nations, the Arab surrounding nations, to do it. And I don't know. But I think this is pushing it very quickly. And I know that a lot of you think we're very, very close right now. And there's others that think, I want to tell you, because I'm in the position of hearing from the others, let's say, and there's quite a few people that are of the belief that it's very, very immediate future. So let's hope everybody that thinks that is right. So please, I'll put a prayer out for myself. If you want to agree with it, I'd appreciate it. My Heavenly Father, Yehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for me and my wife, for our peace, safety, protection, joy, and good health and good functioning mentally and physically. I pray our birds and dogs, which are all rescues, be happy, healthy, and whole, and safe and secure. I pray for our finances, that they improve, that we could afford better food. And I pray for healing for me and my wife. And I pray for better videos, that we have more insights, and I pray to be able to help the people more. And I pray for people to come to Israel with the true gospel, to be able to hit it, boots on the ground, and spread the gospel. And I pray for your shalom on Israel, that for peace and safety on Israel ultimately. And I ask all this b'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree. And I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I hope you feel better as a result of this. And that's one of my goals personally, is that I know this keeps you guys going, some of you, and quite a few of you actually, and I'm glad to do it. And I look forward to it actually. And these new artificial intelligence things are helping me get the news better, believe it or not. I don't, believe it's going to be able to tell me motives of things, like maybe it will, I don't know. But I got to get another one for the videos, because if I can cut through the videos in, let's say 3 minutes or 4 minutes even, from the time I enter the link in till I get the summary of what was said and read it, it sure beats 30, 45 minutes of listening to it and fast forwarding and stuff like that. And I got to get one that allows me to cut and paste so I can put it in my notes and recite it verbatim to you guys. So that's probably going to cost me another $5 to $10 a month. Big deal. But it's crazy. This Edify does fantastic summaries, but it won't work on many of the videos. It's a shame. It really gives much better summaries than Chat GPT. And Grok, which is good for the internet in general, does great summaries too. But it won't work on YouTube. So I gotta find something else for YouTube that works better. And I'll look around, you know. Okay, guys, I'm out. Thanks. And you could always write me. My email's at the bottom of the description box, the lowest line down. Send prayer requests in, ask questions. You want me to agree with you about something privately, I could do that. You want me to put it up for everybody to do it, we'll just use your initials. And it'd be nice if you hit the thumbs up button, then we get some thumbs up. It usually helps with the YouTube algorithm, or at least a lot of people think it does anyway. I don't know. I'll ask AI to think if it works. Maybe they know. I'm out. Thanks.